Hello everyone, welcome to a new type of video. This is a departure from my old videos, and I'll say I'm not done making animations or animatics or anything else I have in progress. This is just to kind of fill the void because I post every 4 months and it's not because I'm putting it off or like I am actively working on everything I can, but I just never have time to work on anything, and I'll be honest, half the time I spend playing video games, which is completely my thing, but it's fun. Can you blame me? I love video games. Also, if you can hear my dog in the background, he's just eating his food. That's just what's going to happen for now. This is the only time I can find to record this, and you know what? He's hungry. Let him eat. You done? He's done. Alright. Anyway, the topic of this video today is actually the Mimic. We'll get into what the Mimic is in a bit if you're unfamiliar. I've got to clarify though, I'm not going to become a FNAF YouTuber. I have no intention of becoming a FNAF YouTuber. I've also never read any of the books. I have also never played any of the games, which is very ironic. I have watched all the content of the games through Let's Plays and just analysis videos and stuff, though. I have information about the Mimic from the books. I've never read them myself. I am barely, like at the bare minimum, involved with the FNAF community because of some of the stuff that has happened in the past involving them, which I will not get into because I have some very unpopular opinions about some people involved in FNAF, and I'm not getting into that. I don't want to talk about it. Moving on, this is just a video kind of talking about the Mimic. It's just a ramble video, because I tend to do this kind of stuff in, like, my boyfriend's DMs and also my friends. So I just figured, why not just record a video about it to fill the space, to kind of talk about it, because I'm really, like, obsessed with the Mimic right now, and I really want to talk about kind of, not the lore of the Mimic, because I'm not going to get into too much of the lore. I'm just gonna talk basically about how excited I am about the Mimic. Let's just get into it. So, have you heard about the Mimic? Because I'm frankly obsessed with it. I have had profile pictures and banners and all this other stuff, so many plans I've had that I've been working on for years that I just kind of think and I'm like, what if I made that about the Mimic now? I've changed my profile picture on at least one thing by now into the Mimic, and I'm planning to do more, but I need to stop myself because I have had these images for years. I really like the Mimic. So, in general, I think the Mimic is so refreshing. In my personal opinion, the Mimic is like, it's such a breath of fresh air for FNAF. I really like the direction Steel Wool is taking the games, and I had some issues with Steel Wool, just like how they ran it. Like, I am so glad that the DLC was free. I would not have been very happy if it wasn't. Again, I didn't play Security Breach, but I have witnessed a lot of issues with that game, and I would not have picked up Security Breach just because of how broken it is in the first place. I was strongly considering picking up Security Breach.
It was before it came out, is when I decided I wouldn't buy it, actually. But when it did come out, and I was not regretting that decision. It's just, we don't need to relive Security Breach. We all know how broken it was. I'm glad they made the DLC free. I remember when I heard there was going to be DLC, I was very angry. Because I was like, if they make charged DLC for this broken game, then I was not going to be very happy at all. Personally, I don't really understand the complaints about, like, oh no, the Mimic is a book character. Now, how will anyone understand the game? Guys, do you remember what Scott used to do to these games? That man has never made the story clear to understand. Unless you read the books, of course. The Mimic is a concept that I feel like anyone could understand without having to have knowledge of the books. Like, we're still unclear, or at least some people are. I still am not sure if this was ever proven or not. If Remnant is a canon thing in the game, it is, to an extent, because they hint at it in, like, blueprints and stuff, right? But no one knows about Remnant, and I feel like Remnant is a very important thing. If you have played through all of the games, do you know what Remnant is? No? That's what I'm saying, is that the Mimic being a book character and you getting the backstory of the Mimic in the books is not going to be as important as stuff like Remnant never getting mentioned in the games. What I mean by that is the Mimic is something that anyone can understand. And even though people don't have the full backstory of the Mimic, it's not that hard to put 2 and 2 together into what the Mimic is, what the Mimic does, and how it works. You don't need the full Mimic lore backstory about how he got beat up by his creator and stuff. You don't need that to understand the Mimic. You don't need all of that. You can just, you're like, oh, this thing is pretending to be other things. Well, its name is the Mimic, and you can kind of infer that. You don't even need its name to understand what it is. It's kind of the same with, like, characters like Henry, who we also don't know anything about if you've played only the games. Like, yeah, he's a major player in Pizzeria Simulator, but you're not gonna, like, know his name or any of that. You might know his name. I think his name is mentioned once. But you're not gonna know anything about him. You're not gonna know his motivations. You're not gonna know... You're gonna be surprised that his first thing he says is, like, my daughter Charlie. Like, you're not gonna understand that. So I don't think the Mimic being a book character is really a founded fear in reality. When Scott was over there making characters with full fleshed out backstories who weren't robots, and their first interaction with the games was the end of their story. So, at least with the Mimic, we can say that this is the beginning of a story, and that the Mimic is going to go somewhere, whereas Henry entered the games for the first time, and then exited the games, and we never saw him again. I don't think the Mimic is just going to disappear. And yeah, we don't know a lot about the Mimic yet, because this is a new story point that is going to be explored. I think, honestly, it's just how used to Scott's storytelling the entire FNAF community is, because FNAF was confusing, man. That man gave us nothing to work with in the games, and it feels like people are expecting the Mimic to vanish into thin air afterwards, which, if this was still only Scott's game, yeah, it would have. So yeah, guys, welcome to normal storytelling. I know, it's so hard to get used to it. It's so hard to not expect your game to just, like, change at a moment's notice because Scott decided, you know what, maybe game theory was a little silly today, and he was right. Okay, let's talk about the final thing I wanted to talk about today is just speculation on the future. I didn't dive much into the Mimic today. I think you can infer what the Mimic is, and I'd be surprised if anyone clicked on this video didn't know what the Mimic was. I would recommend Dawko's video about the Mimic. It's very good. I might link it, I might not. We'll find out. I probably will. Alright, let's get into the carnival. This is what the future of FNAF is the carnival. I have 2 ongoing theories about what the carnival might be. Number 1, I think the carnival might be related to Sister Location and Circus Baby's Pizzeria, because we've never gone there before. I wonder if the pizzeria is more connected to the carnival than we think it is. I think that's going to be a huge thing, especially with, like, Help Wanted 2 coming out, and Help Wanted 2 focusing on Sister Location. I don't think Help Wanted 2 is going to be about the carnival. I think there might be a lot of hints towards the carnival, but I think their next game, like, security breach level game, is going to be about the carnival. And I think, personally, I think it might be tied in some way to Sister Location, which I think is an obvious parallel to make. But I also have a new theory that's popped up recently, is that the carnival could be related to the cutout in the Brazil ending. The cutout that you run into to get the Brazil ending is a old style Freddy circus-like cutout. And if that's from like the 70s, we could be going back in time again, or even further. I thought it said 70s, but it might be further back. And it would be fun to go back in time in FNAF again, because I feel like moving forward, it's great. I gotta be honest though, I love moving forward in the games. I don't like the story skipping Scott used to do, where we would go back in time and then we'd come back and then we'd be like, oh, here's FNAF 3, but actually FNAF 2 came first, or like, that was crazy. I don't even remember the timeline. Like, was Michael actually the player character in most of FNAF, or did I make that up? I don't know. I think I'm in general pretty excited for the future of FNAF, whichever route they decide to take. I hope we don't go too far back in time, and if we're exploring an old location, I hope it's abandoned, several years abandoned, and we're not playing through it while it's open, because I would hate to make that timeline more convoluted than it has to be. I'm very excited for the future of FNAF. I think it is getting better. I know that's an unpopular opinion because people really liked Pizzeria Simulator. I think Pizzeria Simulator was the peak of Scott's storytelling. The rest of it, but I might make another video after I read over the Tales of the Pizzaplex. But that's a ways off because my queue for my library for any book is very long. And if I have to get 7 books, it might be well over a year. But for now, my FNAF era is over. Or I might be back when FNAF drops Help Wanted 2 because I love Help Wanted.